Life is a canvas. What color would be dominating right now?
Don't take me wrong, I would say black.
You have worked with a lot of founders and co-founders. तो एक होता ना कि बहुत ही कॉमन सा पैटर्न्स होते हैं.
Yeah.
तो व्हाट वाज दैट?
There are one set of people who'd be like, यार ये problem चल रही है, it exists, but ठीक है चलने देते हैं.
Being a builder is not a momentary thing, it's a long haul, is what you're telling.
It should be good enough for you to feel like, you know what, it shouldn't be like your Monday thing that I wake up and I feel, why do I have to head out, right?
Welcome to Sapno Ke Canvas, a podcast where dreams, stories and emotions come alive. कभी-कभी हम ऐसे इंसान से मिलते हैं जो सिर्फ करियर नहीं बनाते. They build something different, like companies, communities, cultures.
Some people just don't build companies, they build an ecosystem.
तो आज हमारे साथ एक ऐसे गेस्ट हैं जिनकी कहानी सिर्फ स्टार्टअप तक नहीं है. इट इज बियॉन्ड दैट.
Beyond just creativity and just not creating companies, it's more than that. So let's welcome Avneer.
Thank you guys. I mean, first of all, I think you guys were too kind with the introduction. For people who don't know me, essentially, yes, I'm currently a third-time founder. But journey मेरी काफ़ी पहले शुरू हो गई थी. I did my education in Manipal. I started my first company in college. College का goal अलग था. When you start a company, typically you hear founders saying that I always had that zeal and passion to start something. मेरा goal यही था कि I should have money enough to go and afford a trip to Goa. So that's where the journey truly started. But कहीं ना कहीं I think somewhere along the lines, you start enjoying that process. So yes, it is definitely not just about starting companies. For me, it started with doing my first music performance, doing street art. Now people around Bangalore know me that I do a lot of mixology. I collect Hot Wheels. I do Pokemon cards. So essentially, I'm the anti-archetype of only building. So yeah, I mean that's been if for people who are listening in, right? That's basically who I am in a nutshell.
The facets go like way beyond even our minds can comprehend, from mixology to building companies. That's really interesting. The first question that I'm going to ask will be very simple. So if life is a canvas, what color would be dominating right now?
Okay, so don't take me wrong. I would say black. Uh, Let me sort of elaborate on that. If you talk about canvases in specific, we blend in all the different colors that kind of make up life. In this case, maybe web gear. You end up getting black, right? So for me, black has always stood for, like, it stands for contentment, but at the same time, there's a void. So there's always room for more. And I think that's where I think I've always liked black. And that's my justification of having an all black wardrobe, to be very honest. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really good answer for those who are keeping their wardrobe black with black. So I have seen many people like that. Even I was like that before. So coming back to the second question, like अगर आपको अपनी जर्नी को एक वर्ड में डिफाइन करना हो तो what will be that word?
Interesting. I would say perseverance. Most of my life, honestly, has been more or less about persevering through different stages. I think for every engineer in India, it starts with, trying to get into IITs. I also had that same goal when I started out. My dad is an IITian. So there was always this inbuilt, goal that I'd also want to study at the same place that he did. Uh, couldn't crack through, and Manipal was one of those options that in hindsight now looks perfect. I wouldn't have traded it off for anything else. But you start persevering when when you're struggling through and trying to make a name. And then post that, it's been trying to do different journeys, trying to zigzag your career around it. A lot of my early career has been taking bets, which essentially doesn't make sense if you try to connect the dots. And you have to really persevere through all of that, from doing that to starting up again, then going through a phase of winding down and then trying to pick yourself back up. So I think all of that essentially amalgamates into, just perseverance essentially.
Okay, so basically you have 11 years of experience, I guess?
I mean,
In like,
around 12. And if you count my college days as well, maybe 15. I stopped counting. So yeah.
so like I just read somewhere that you have experiences in different domains like startups, hyper growth companies. But हर जर्नी की ना शुरुआत एक कहीं छोटी जगह पे होती है। तो कैन यू जस्ट लेट अस नो वो ऐसा एक मोमेंट क्या था जब आपको लगा कि कुछ करना चाहिए?
Ah, okay. This sends me back. So there's a sense of nostalgia that kicks in. I think when I was telling you guys about how I started up or how I decided, right? Let me go take a deep dive around it, maybe. So essentially, I come from a tier two city. It's called Bhilai, and it's in Chhattisgarh. My family background is like we're typically middle class folks. My dad was in public service, right? So I've never seen how do you really build stuff from grounds up per se. So the entire objective when you start out and go into college was get into a good stream, get into a good job. The only mandate that my father told me while going to college was just go and have fun, right? You know, explore things that you otherwise wouldn't. So when I entered college, I was an introverted kid. Like basically everyone kind of goes through that growing up phase, right? Um, that was a little tough in my opinion. So when I went into college, I was absolutely in my own cocoon. It took me a little while to kind of start exploring myself a little bit better. Manipal does that. I think it's a brilliant place for that because it lets you be you without a lot of the baggage or judgment that typically comes around on that, right? So I ended up meeting a few people. They were a very interesting bunch who were staying in the same hostels. That's how I ended up meeting my other co-founder, who I consider a very dear friend, Gopal. And he was the one who introduced me to, you know, the whole world of entrepreneurship, that a lot of things are possible. So when he met me, we ended up catching up at our newly built food court. One fine evening, he calls all of us up. He's like, we're going to start Manipal's first student magazine. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do because, again, my entire objective back then was just to get into the right stream and get good grades because that's how I've typically grown up, right? Now, when that happened, I was a little confused as to how it will work. The way he sold it to me was, you'll make money. And I was happy. As a college kid, you are happy to make extra money. So I was like, great, I'm in. I will be able to sponsor my trips. That's a great outcome. That's how that journey started. And I wouldn't lie about it because I feel that a lot of times there is a lot of enamor right now with when people start up in colleges. It didn't start with that notion for us, right? I think जब मेरा 2 साल हो गया after like I had just started entering my third year, one of the things that happened was essentially that my first allergy attack is when I got in college, basically, where I ended up passing out. I ended up chipping my tooth. That was a bad experience. My closest friends had to take me to the hospital, so they're aware of that entire story.
Okay.
But when that happened, I was extremely embarrassed because you don't want to run around in campus with a chipped off tooth, right? People don't like that. You're feeling embarrassed. You're already self-conscious. And back then, obviously, like I was performing on stage, I was doing music, so it meant a lot of front facing. That was, I would say, I wouldn't say that it prompted me, but then again, as I said about Gopal, right? He was the guy who will be like, you know what, this may be a problem for a lot of other people as well. And I thought, yeah, could be, हो सकता है कि शायद से बाकी लोगों को भी embarrassment होती होगी. Why is it taking 2 weeks for me to get a crown? And that's when we started ideating. We were both mechanical kids. We thought we'll start building our first 3D printer. We'll do crowns for dentists. But that was my first foray into actually identifying that, you know, there are bigger problems out there that we can really solve. We obviously started with the aspect of making money, but when we got into that whole phase and you start building something from scratch, I think that euphoria that you get is just out of the world. Like you start exploring, you are hustling around. I remember days where we had made friends with dental students, taki they can like pass us their dentine powder, which was extremely expensive. You know, we couldn't afford that as kids. So we did that and it was good fun. But for me, I think that is what kind of solidified the whole experience. Ki yaar, this is it. Like I would always enjoy building than doing anything else.
3D printers for dentists.
Yeah.
I also recall a personal incident. I have a crown, and even I chipped off my tooth while
How long did
swimming.
it take?
It took me 3 days to decide that
You're lucky.
to get a crown. Yeah, coming back to the question. So you were part of a lot of hyper growth startups, and chaos is a common denominator in all hyper growth startups. So what meaningful life lesson did you get being in those environments?
Absolutely, yeah. I think when you think about hypergrowth, we always have this sense of glamorization, especially how the media works around the startup ecosystem, right? Any company that faces hypergrowth, it looks absolutely glamorous from the outside, but there is fire inside, right? It's pure chaos. And the problem with chaos is that chaos comes with shit tons of confusion. So it comes with a lot of confusion, right? Typically. Now, when you kind of go into the whole hypergrowth stage, that's actually when startups are going through break things fast, learn, and then build it again, right? Though that kind of pace starts expanding massively. So when you go through that entire journey, uh, unless and until you're very comfortable with ambiguity, you'd not be able to sustain that life. And that's where a lot of hypergrowth companies are very demanding. And that's why you'll find a lot more people who sign up for hypergrowth companies. They burn out very quickly for that, right? In in my experience, I feel what kind of was a multiplying factor was I was also growing into a leadership role when I joined a hyper growth company. And that kind of comes with its own challenges because you're also trying to establish yourself as a leader, and at the same time you're trying to become a market leader as a whole. So when you kind of take those instances in, it gets absolutely messy, which means that every day that you come in, you'll be dealing with hiring problems. You'd have pivots, you'd have different levers that you need to figure out on. There is competition, there's bunch of things that kind of can go wrong, and it happens every day, right? So the two things that I would say that really helped me out, and I think why people should experience that entire zone, I think the first is staying true to the foundations. Now, when I talk about foundations, I always follow the 3 P's principle in that, which means process, people, and proactiveness. So, process, more or less very self explanatory. People, again, always surround yourself with the right people. If you're not building it with the right people, you'll never enjoy that process. What we typically get wrong most of the times is we try to find ourselves in different people that we work with, but that was never the idea. Great people relationships or team building work like marriages. You have to figure out complementary sets so that all of you can fit like pieces of puzzles essentially. And when I say proactiveness is essentially nothing but like proactiveness in communication, in trust, and how do you kind of operate. Like you have to come in with extreme amount of rigor and energy every day to do that, because the problems that you're trying to solve and the scale that you're at is just too big to fail at that point of time, right? So you have to be extremely proactive in all of those elements. So those foundations help a lot because those are some things that you'll typically miss. We kind of, again, as I said, you get glamorize the scale, but those are the things that kind of hold the ground. If you don't have your foundation strong, how will you end up building a skyscraper, right? That's what makes a typical building versus a Burj Khalifa different, right? That's what makes it different. The other bit is essentially you learn to operate from a place of clarity. Now, when I talk about clarity, a lot of times what people confuse is that, yes, you have to be assertive and you have to be very clear about your decision making, but you cannot get obsessed about your decision making at all. And when I say that, a lot of times you have to make decisions on the fly based on the information that you have, and it could be absolutely wrong. And there's nothing wrong in that. The whole reason startup world survives is we're allowed to make mistakes, right? So I made my fair share of mistakes, absolute. And you have to be like ready with that. So the whole leadership aspect comes in so that you can stick to your decisions and stay true to it. If you made a call, take accountability on that front, stick to your decision, see what works, what doesn't. If it has worked, great. If it doesn't, just take the learning and you now know at least one way that things wouldn't work, right? So I think that clarity of operations and then keeping the foundations alive, I think that's what it teaches you really well.
That's really true. And I heard that you have worked with a lot of founders and co-founders. तो एक होता है ना कि बहुत ही कॉमन सा पैटर्न्स होते हैं.
Yeah.
तो what was that? Do you want to talk on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I've spent some time working with a fund as well. I've spent a lot of time consulting with a lot of early stage startups. I still try to do my bit. We have given our office space to a bunch of budding entrepreneurs who are doing really well, where I have a lot of early conviction. Um, I think there are two things that I really look for and which I feel are great indicators of a good founder, barring the technical aspects or the depth that they usually come with, which I think most operators typically do when they start operating in a particular venture. First is if you look at the mindset, right? There are two kinds of people that I feel you meet in your lifetime. I think when you stay in India, you have problems every day. Especially in Bangalore, there are tons of things to crib about, essentially, right? So there are one set of people who'd be like, यार ये प्रॉब्लम चल रही है, it exists, but ठीक है चलने देते हैं. मतलब है, you will crib about it, you'll hear them crib about it, you'll hear them complain about it. The second subset of people are like, ये problem है क्यों? And that's the builder's mindset. That's a very, very big demarcation that every time you give a builder a problem statement, the first thought process in their mind is, ये problem exist क्यों करती है? और अगर है, तो how do we get this solved? So I think that's the first marker that you kind of notice that the best kind of founders essentially always approach from a problem solving mindset, right? They want to build something, they want to solve out problems, and they are good at recognizing it. I think the second, again, this could be a little contrarian. I would say that typically as founders, your job or most of the times the expectation in the market is you have to have your answers ready. That is not the case. The best of the founders that I have met had the patience and I think a lot of perseverance in that they could stay longer with the questions, right? Which means that questions around why does my customer have this problem? If I have built this, why is it not improving their lives? When you have done something, it's a constant iteration of, staying long with the questions for so long that you end up kind of answering that. And every answer that you create leads to another question of how does it get better. And I think those two elements, when you combine, you have the best founders that can probably solve anything that comes across them.
So being a builder is not a momentary thing. It's a long haul is what you're
You have to. I mean, unless and until you really sign up for the long haul, it should be good enough for you to feel like, you know what, it shouldn't be like your Monday thing that I wake up and I feel, why do I have to head out, right?
That's
I wake up on Mondays, I feel, even if I've had a crap week the week before, right? I wake up feeling like there is no end to this world. There's so much potential that we can do this week. So unless and until you have that innate feeling that you wake up and you feel that you're really going to get up and change the world, and you have to be delusional enough to think like that every day to keep yourself motivated, right? So I think that's more or less what makes a great builder, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true.
we'll definitely keep this in our mind.
Delusion is important. So
Yeah,
I'll keep
delusion is the key.
yeah, absolutely. So currently you're building the 101 collective, right? So what are you trying to solve here, Avneer?
Absolutely, yeah. So for I think you guys are aware, for others who don't know, I've spent a good part of my life working across different domains, as you mentioned, right? One of them was essentially I started my first startup journey started with an edtech company, which was called Upgrad. I joined them as a founding member here in Bangalore. I was brought in to do enterprise, but essentially I was there, go-to guy for everything that needs to be done from scratch. That journey taught me a lot, and it was exciting because, as I said, for me, if you go back, a few years back, I was struggling to get into IITs. I always had this somewhere, I think somewhere deep down, there is always this feeling that maybe I had not done enough. And maybe this is, so many people in this country or in the world would feel like that. What if we are able to open up those opportunities to them, right? That was the notion that we started with the whole EdTech wave. I think we got a lot of things right when we started out. And then I spent time working in HR tech. I built out my HR tech company as well for some time. I worked across socials. I worked with a lot of different companies who have done education and internet tech in general. So you get a lot, the feeling that you get of, education is, I think, one of the core pillars of anyone's life. It kind of affords them to make a living and everything like that. When you solve for that, it's that sense of contentment that you get from building it is absolutely unparalleled. But I think in the last 1.5, 2 years, and this was around the time I was building my HR tech company, right? There are two instances that kind of shaped up why I'm doing one, which I'll come to down the line. The first thing was I was trying to solve for hiring, right? Which again has been a very outdated industry, so and so. The first instance that happened was I was talking to one of these HR guys from a very well renowned startup. And I asked him that, how would you end up selecting people? The thing that kind of was a punch in the gut for me was he spoke about some of these certificates that I had been a part of, like, companies that I had built from scratch along with the founders. And they said, we immediately filter them out. And that kind of felt like a punch in the gut because that kind of makes you feel that 8, 10 years of your life just down the drain, that you've not been able to create that kind of impact, right? The second thing that kind of set what I'm doing right now in motion was one of these HR leaders that I really looked up to in one of these companies, which I'll not name. I really looked up to him because I felt that his mind was in the right space. Because if you look at his LinkedIn, he'll talk about being inclusive for employees. building for the right goals, all of that you typically get in a PR machine essentially. But then I spoke to him about how does he make his hiring decisions. His entire statement, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. His was, I hire for desperation. And that felt even wrong because if that's how leaders who are building this are approaching it from, we were absolutely getting it wrong from day one, right? So I think we started off with the right notions, but somewhere along the line with scale and the expectations and the things that happened in the market, we kind of deviated from what we actually had set out to do. So coming back now, when that happened, that was a great realization. But back then I was like in HR tech. So I was like, fair enough. I may try to solve this later down the line. The 1.5 years that I spent working with founders and at the fund, and then the learning kind of started seeping in that the world is changing and the whole AI boom started happening right around that time, right? That was eye opening because typically what we were offering people was the information arbitrage. We had access to, initially, universities had it with the kind of professors that they would get. Education tech companies had it because they had access to experts from the world that you couldn't idly speak to. But now, all of a sudden, all of that information that was constrained under that paywall was absolutely gone, right? And when you look at the new generations coming in, the way they approach, as opposed to say, I'm a millennial, right? I have obviously been conditioned in a different way. All of you guys would have also grown up in that whole internet era where dial-up was the first thing that you did. Then you figured out the internet. Then you would have done your tools and you're working at tech companies right now. But when that happened, I think the whole Gen Z phase actually just exploded, right? Because if you look at that generation, and not just Gen Zers, even Gen Alpha, their approach is absolutely phenomenal. They're very mindful about who they are. They are very focused on the kind of careers that they want to build. They are extremely headstrong about their approach, which means all those traditional notions of how we thought skilling has to happen across the globe has completely changed. And the problem is, as academia or even as online edtech companies, we have never kept pace with what the consumers really want. We've always tried to Indianize our way into it, where we feel that this is one approach and that's the one form that has to be taken. And luckily, this generation is changing that, right? So that is the essence of what we're trying to do. Our goal is very simple. I realize that this is a problem statement I've always been in love with. I always wanted to solve problems around skilling and giving people opportunities and democratizing that, right? So what we're doing at 101 Collective, we're building Flow 101. I'll keep the VC pitch of the angle out of it. In simple words, think of it that we're building the world's smartest skill engine and smart agents that can basically, that enables you to access any subject matter at the palm of your tips, basically, right? It's like having a mentor or whosoever you'd want anytime, basically, your way. So it essentially, what it does is it's the infrastructure that lets you skill your own way. Every one of us have had that conversation in mind in the back of our heads, right? I would have loved if I was taught like that. I would have loved if I was shown things like that, right? So we're not a content play, we're not anything. We're building the next consumer AI wave. And our vision is very clear. We want to be the operating system for the next billion people. We will be the next operating system for the next billion people. So that's the goal.
Okay, interesting. So, with the advent of AI, where do you think this will go? Because now all the mundane tasks are being automated.
Yeah.
You open Instagram, YouTube, you see people giving us claw, open claw tests or claw tips. I'm still trying to catch up every day.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about this? Where will
About
this
AI in
go?
general?
Yeah, about AI in general.
You guys have to be then like ready because I can yap a lot about AI. So see, I think
Maybe something for the audience, like it is a trending question nowadays. Like everywhere there's a reel about Claude and this and that.
Yeah.
I think we do a bad job because I think we've instilled so much of fear internally also. We'd actually done a Reddit analysis some time back within our own org, right? So I'm a big propagator of identifying emerging user trends and also user psychology. Like a lot of our building is very much focused on user psychology. Like we feel tech is the enabler, and even with AI, it just supercharges it. But our core still remains on that. So yes, it's very true. I think while there are more conversations around AI, you'd be surprised. 50% of what people talk about on Reddit in terms of engagement actually happens on AI fear. So for people listening in, if they are thinking that it's too late, no. Like the number of people who are actually doing AI right now is still phenomenally less. There is no right or wrong timing about it. It's just about getting comfortable. Now, in terms of and again, this would be purely subjective, I would say. My opinions on AI is that I think it's the best thing that has happened to the world as of yet, right? All of us have grown up into a system where, as I said, right, we've seen how that journey of tech evolution has happened, and suddenly we see that supercharge. There was a study that AI is, increase like it gets doubled up in capacity every 7 months, and that's a phenomenal pace because the kind of opportunities it has opened up, I think they kind of supersede anything else in terms of what people have in fears, and it is absolutely fair for people to have fear because anything that you don't understand or know will always scare you first, right? Now, in my understanding, on my viewpoint at least, I feel AI is going to change the world for the good. There are so many different problem statements that we've been plagued with for so long, be it around our medical research, be it around scientific research, skilling, as a matter of fact, has been so outdated for so long. It could also be the fact that the way I look at it is that AI will open up a space where a lot of times when you would have started pre-AI era, anytime you talk to someone, you would have heard this in Bangalore a lot more times that, I always had this idea, but I could never build it because मुझे tech नहीं आता था.
Uh,
And that's always been the excuse, right? All of us have been guilty of it, including me. I've also done that when I didn't want to start up. Uh, you can't run behind that excuse anymore.
Yeah.
Now you're only limited by the kind of thought process, the creativity that you have, and the way you approach your problem statements, right? So AI kind of will supercharge a lot more early builders coming in, they can launch their one-person companies. The kind of people we are bringing in on board, right? I've got college dropouts who are working with me who have launched their companies. That's the best real world example of someone who's leveraging AI and doesn't have to fall into the traditional education system, right? Most of our team essentially uses AI very extensively and they've just only gotten better at their jobs. And what it does is it will open up a lot more possibilities for people to create unique solutions to problems that have been plaguing us for so long. So I think the possibilities are great. And that's where I see, at least these are the areas where I feel that it will have a lot more impact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really true. Even I'm with you in this. So apart from all of this, you're a music composer too.
I mean, I would not say composer. I am still
Okay.
I think semi-amateur. I
Yeah,
used to play in a rock
but
band for
you
6 years.
are
Yeah.
into it, and there are a couple of other things like Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Then some street art as well. So how do you manage these things?
I would not say manager, honestly speaking. For me, the work that I do, the things that I follow are essentially a big part of who I am. So it never felt like there is any management in play. Uh, I think if I have to position it better, I would say that it's basically different forms of expression of what my curiosity is. So everything that I do, from Hot Wheels to Pokemon cards, is just different forms of expression of my curiosity as a human being. So it never felt like managing, to be very honest. It's always been play. I am a big believer that you have to like really have that feeling of everything that you follow through has to come from a place of curiosity and play. So if you kind of treat it like that, you will never have to feel the need that you have to manage it, because it's not like I give 1 hour to this, 1 hour to that. It's just about going with the flow and being okay with the ambiguity that comes around with it, right? Figure things out on the way. So if you are pursuing any of these hobbies, please don't do it for FOMO. I know Hot Wheels is a big rager right now, but never do it for that. Always approach it with a sense of curiosity and let things take its own course, right? I mean, we put so much pressure when we do work on day to day. There needs to be something that keeps you grounded, that kind of reminds you. And I think for me, it's the biggest thing that it has been is that it kind of keeps my inner kid alive. And it always grounds me back to the 10-year-old me who would have thought ki, wow, one day I'll be able to do this, right? So it's a great reminder that as a 10-year-old, your dreams would have been, yaar, मैं खुद से खरीद सकता हूँ. I mean, I'm not sure if I should tell this story, and my wife knows about this story very well. And my dad loves telling this. I used to be a very picky kid when I was a young bacha. One of those instances, which means that I was obsessed with my toys, GI Joe's, Hot Wheels, as a kid. I think there was one time where I don't know how old was I. Probably I would have been 6, 7 year, 8-year old or something. I went to a shop and I liked the car, and my dad was like, no. And he just left me crying, right? I was like, literally, the shopkeeper was like, I will buy it for him. And he's like, no, I'm going to leave. I think he left the shop, and everybody knows that. And because my dad loves telling the story, right? And I just like saw and I like, oh shit, he's not there anymore. I just ran back. But as a kid, that also like tells you, right? Like when you're like a little kid, you're like, "Main bhi ye karunga. I'll also get out. I'll get old and I'll do all of this," right? I think somewhere along the way we tend to forget that, and I think I also did for a good part of time. It took me getting down after winding up my last startup, and it took me a lot of that journey of seeing that lowest point to realize that a lot of those things that I'm taking for granted I would have loved. I really wanted to be there as a kid. So I think a good part of it is basically keeping my inner kid alive and just like reminding myself ki these were the dreams back then. Right now, you can actually make those calls. Like you can buy toys at your own whim and nobody to tell you anything about it. So I think that it's a good reminder of that. It just keeps you grounded and it kind of just shows that, there's so much that you've already achieved and there's so much more that you can go for.
Like it's like no matter what, keep your inner child alive.
Absolutely. I'm a
Yeah,
big,
even I believe in this.
I propagate this to everyone. I've gotten everyone in my office hooked onto this. And yeah, I think you should absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe we can move to rapid fire round?
Yes. We'll have a
I'm bad at
rapid
rapid fires, huh?
So quick rapid fire.
Sure.
Build or manage?
Build any day.
Risk or stability?
Deliberate risk.
Art or technology?
I'm a big technology guy.
Community or competition?
That's tough. I would say community with others, but competition with self, basically.
That's a brilliant answer.
Yeah.
So after seeing your journey through this podcast, like what I felt is कि हमें सिर्फ करियर नहीं करना चाहिए, उसको एक स्ट्रेट लाइन नहीं समझना चाहिए. आई मीन वी शुड थिंक आवर लाइफ एज अ कोलाज, जहाँ थोड़ा टेक हो, थोड़ा क्रिएटिविटी हो, थोड़ा पैशन हो, और एक होती है ना कि एक जुनून होनी चाहिए अंदर से. अगर वो हो तो कहीं न कहीं हमारी ज़िंदगी खूबसूरत हो जाती है और बहुत ही अच्छे से उभर कर आती है. सो दैट्स व्हाट आई फेल्ट, दैट्स हाउ आई थिंक यू पेंट द कैनवस.
Yeah. I mean, yes, have fun. Like
See.
you've only got one life, right?
Yeah, and
Still have fun.
so like I really enjoy the conversation with you. Like
Same.
it was a great conversation, and
So we painted our canvas with a particular color today called perseverance.
We did.
And
Yes.
we'll absolutely be super delusional when we're trying to build stuff and solve problems. And
Yep.
also we'll try to keep our inner child alive. I have to look through your Hot Wheels collection.
I mean, you feel free to do that. Before we sign off, actually, I do have a bit for both of you. So, staying true to our vision, always get your first Hot Wheels. I'm not sure if you guys have that. There's one for you. There's one for you.
Oh, this is so
Thank
And
you so much.
I also do have
So
Pokemon
cute.
cards, by the way.
Pokemon cards.
Yeah. So, just a way for you to guys get started. The harder part has always been getting started. So, just start your journey, or maybe it will just take you somewhere
Ah.
else.
I got
That's
lucky.
so cute.
This means a lot. My inner child Clinton will be very happy.
Then I've done a good job today. Then.
And my inner child is always happy after seeing all this. So it was a lovely conversation.
Likewise, guys.
So keep painting the canvas the way you want to paint. Keep your inner child alive. और हम फिर मिलते रहेंगे सपनों के कैनवस में.
Until we meet again, go subscribe to our channel, watch all the episodes, drop a like, comment, everything, okay? Also press the bell icon. You'll
Yes.
get notifications immediately.
So this is सपनों के कैनवस signing off. Bye.